Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Think Oral Health podcast, where Dr. Jonathan Levine and myself, Maria Filipova, we connect the dots between different care disciplines and different opportunities for patients to get better overall care by incorporating oral health into their treatment planning. Hello, Jonathan. Great to see you. And hello to our guest today, Stephenie Goddard. Hi, Stephenie.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to introduce our guests to our speakers, to our listeners today. Stephenie is the Chief Executive Officer of Glidewell Dental. It's one of the leading dental labs providing wide range of dental products and services, and one of the largest dental labs globally. We'll ask Stephenie about her journey within Glidewell as a company that was founded in the 1970s that has grown exponentially over the last years. But we'll also ask Stephenie about her core expertise, which are topics of organizational development, business strategy, change management, transformation. Stephenie has had a stellar path in Glidewell since she joined in 2006, and she was named the CEO of the company in 2022. Like me, Stephenie is a little bit of an outsider to dental, coming from a different industry, finance before that. And you can imagine the journey from finance to dental, you might be a little bit of an appreciator of the thrill and excitement. So little known fact, Stephenie is a thrill seeker, and we'll ask her about that as well. She's an accomplished CEO and executive, and more importantly, she is an accomplished mentor of aspiring emerging leaders, has been awarded multiple awards for her work and commitment to the next generation of leaders. We couldn't be more pleased to have Stephenie today at the program with us. Welcome, Stephenie.
Thank you. I'm going to have you do my intro for me all the time, Maria. You make me sound amazing. I'm like, I want to meet this person.
It's right. That's right. We like to, very selfishly, Jonathan and I invite people that we like to have a conversation with or a coffee with. And so that probably that carries. Stephenie, I'm sure out of all the accomplishments, our listeners want to know, what is thrill seeking mean to you other than joining from finance to dentistry? I'm sure you've probably done a little bit more exciting things than that when it comes to thrill seeking. Yes.
I don't know. I think that's pretty exciting to go from talking about finance and alleviating poverty around the world to talking about teeth all day long. I don't know what they have in common. But yeah, I mean, I think it's probably not unusual for somebody in a senior position to be a little bit of a risk taker or a thrill seeker. But I took my kids to Europe last year, and I've always wanted to jump out of an airplane. I really want to skydive one day. And so my kids, we were in a place called Interlaken, and they had these paragliders that were coming down all day long. And I was like, you guys, I want to do that. We should jump out of a plane. And they're like, okay, Mom, we'll make you a deal. We'll jump off the side of the mountain with you and paraglide if you'll give up your idea of jumping out of a plane. They're like, it's a really stupid way to die. So we'll jump off a mountain with you instead. But I have to say,
there are not that many people we know for whom jumping off a mountain is the safer option. It's less exciting thrill. You know what? I'll take it easy. I'll just jump off the mountain rather than a plane. It's all good.
Right. Exactly.
Tell us a little bit more about your journey. I started with, you're leading a company that has a legacy that was founded in the 70s, that has grown so much. Tell us a little bit about your journey from making the jump from finance to dental oral health, and then what has your journey been within Glidewell?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, because when I joined Glidewell, I was coming from the World Bank in DC. And, their mission obviously is to alleviate poverty around the world. And so to go from that mission to coming into this sort of unknown industry of dental, it was a big leap for me. And I grew up in California, so I was moving back to California from the East Coast. And, Glidewell, I had been looking at several companies, but Glidewell provided this unique thing that you don't find very much anymore, which is a sense of family and like belonging. And so when I joined as their VP of Human Resources, and really not because I had this amazing background in HR, but more because I had a background from my PricewaterhouseCoopers days where I was a change and strategy consultant. And so when I joined Glidewell, it was 1,100 employees, and it was truly the biggest lab at the time, 17 years ago. But when I joined, they were really Jim, Mr. Glidewell, and the COO at the time, Rob Grice, who hired me, knew that they wanted to go on this new growth trajectory and get outside of our core competence or expand on our core competence of lab work and expand into medical device manufacturing. So they were looking for somebody who could come in and help them strategically plan for that growth and get the company up and running. So it's funny, my first day on the job was actually September 11th, which is, yeah, and I was in DC on September 11th when that happened that year. And it obviously holds
Impacted you.
yeah, very deeply. And so I really saw like starting a new job on September 11th as a really bad omen. I was like, oh, what am I doing? I don't think this is such a good idea. But I've come to see it as a huge positive in my life. But 17 years later, this year in September will be my 18th year. I came here kind of thinking I'll do this dental thing for a year or two. I don't know how this is going to go. And I came in and I've really never looked back. And, you know, when you look at, you know, people ask me like, well, why would you stay? But I started off as a VP of HR. And the thing that I love about Jim Glidewell is his approach is, let's find really smart people who are driven and let's just let them kind of run and see what they can do. And he's really never held me back. And so in the time that I've been here, every time I seemed to get a little bored, maybe they sensed it, you know, and so they'd let me take on one more thing and one more thing and one more thing. And so I started off as VP of HR, then became VP of Business Operations, and then I became Executive Vice President of Operations, and then I became Chief Experience Officer. So I took over all of the customer experience. And then I became CEO, like you said, 2 years ago. So it's been a very interesting journey, but one full of gratitude.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Sounds like a very entrepreneurial journey as well. And Jonathan and I both share that entrepreneurial side of it. And I mean, Jonathan, what do you think? Culture and entrepreneurship is, I talk a lot about intrapreneurship, right? The ability to create new opportunities, businesses within the confines of an existing structure. And it's one of the things that I think it's a testament to your leadership, because you have to continuously problem solve, think about what are we doing differently. And business as usual is not a reason to keep doing things the same all the way.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of reminds me, listening to Steph talk about this, reminds me of the expression, what got you here won't get you there. And you being a thrill seeker, that kind of mindset of constantly growing and challenging yourself to new heights and doing new things, you know, with a mindset of just that, of growth, is really something special. So let me dig in a little bit. You know, personally, you know, I'm trained as prosthodontist, been teaching and writing and publishing, and also I live on the invention side. And, you know, let's ask some technical questions. Maria, I like to take the other side of the coin that Maria would. So here's a question for you. How has technology impacted? You're there 17 years at Glidewell, which is this amazing evolving company that started, you know, really just as a dental laboratory and figured out how to scale. How has technology impacted your own experience at Glidewell, but really on the customer side to improve kind of what they do in the delivery of care?
You know, it's an amazing question. I'm so grateful. I thought you were going to start asking me tooth numbers, and I thought, oh, I'm in big trouble.
I won't do that.
I'm like, I know 8, 9, 10, 11. I know where those are.
No, buddy.
You threw me a softball, but it's so funny because when I came here to Glidewell, there were Bunsen burners everywhere.
Wow.
um, trained ceramists with 30 years of experience, literally hand stacking, waxing, everything, painstakingly doing all of this. And then quite literally the world the world of dentistry has changed, and it really feels like overnight, because it kind of came in and it shot out of nowhere. And when you look at laboratories in general, technology is really even the playing field, I would say, right? Because no longer are you looking for that ceramist with 20 years of experience who can painstakingly, you still need those people to do those highly aesthetic cases. But for your everyday, which is bread and butter for dentists, single unit posterior number 30, I do know that one. You don't need a trained ceramist because you have this technology. You've got AI that's doing the designs. You've got mills that are milling the crowns. That artistry has sort of, in some sense left the industry, because you don't really need that level of artistry on teeth that nobody's ever going to see. You need form, fit, and function, which is what's most critical. And so,
cost,
when
right?
you
Accessibility, that's what technology gives you. Uniformity, cost,
predictability,
scale, predictability, consistency versus artistry. So that's a fine balance. It's an interesting part. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, when intraoral cameras or scanners really started to take off, Dr. Levine, that's when you really saw this huge shift in return rates, especially again in that posterior region, right? Because again, you have that predictability. You can see the margin. It's the shape, the size of your head on a screen. You can see your preps. It doesn't fix everything. We still have a lot of bad preps out there, and not everybody's quite gotten it, but it helps you see things bigger and better in a way that you can become a better dentist and provide, again, a more reliable, consistent product to your patient. And then just the change in materials, right? The science behind the new materials that come out, that, so zirconia as a single unit, monolithic product in the posterior far exceeds anything else on the market, right? You don't really see as many PFMs coming through. You don't see as many sort of glass ceramics in the posterior region because people are looking for strength and to provide their patient something that will last for the rest of their life, like gold did, but is tooth colored and more aesthetic. For people who are like me, that, you laugh out loud with your mouth open and it sees what's inside.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
How do you, Stephenie, I just want to do a follow-up on this because you're a people person. You came in as head of talent and HR. So how do you balance that onset of technology and preserving the human side of things, the human judgment, the creativity, the human aspect of it? So how do you think about those two coming together?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because, when we first started bringing in technology, I'm going to say the first technology we had really was, 3D printing copings, right? And so to get technology implemented is a huge culture change because when you think about things like ChatGPT, the world's afraid of this new technology and it's going to take away jobs, right? And what I like to tell people is you can see technology as the thing that takes away jobs, or you can see technology as the thing that elevates your company to the next level to actually create new jobs.
Right.
And that's the approach that we've really taken. And so, like I said, when I started here, we had 1,100 employees. We actually haven't shrunk, and we've implemented huge amounts of technology. We now have over 5,000 employees. So that growth is significant. And the reason, you can make that is, one, it creates new opportunities for people, right? So maybe your traditional hand stacking positions might be fewer and fewer, but now maybe there's some engineering positions that we have available, or some CAD development positions,
Data analytics positions, data engineers. Yeah.
Exactly. Even if you think about the number, we have our own AI models that we've built, and we've written all of our own software. to design crowns in our lab. And when you look at that, the machine learning models that are required to do that and the amount of data that you have to feed it, we do about 120,000 units a week in our lab. We've got millions of crowns stored in there. And you could sort of say, well, let's take all the crowns that we've ever made and let's use that to make our models. But, one of the things, and you'll know this, Dr. Levine, like every time you replace a tooth, it tends to get bulkier and bulkier. Like the anatomy gets bulkier to fill in that space and to create the crown. So if you create your AI models off of human-made products, you get one type of AI model. But if you can create AI models off of natural teeth, right, because we have all this data, then you can get, a more predictive model that will say, hey, this is what a human tooth would look like, and this is what should go back in this space.
Yeah.
But that creates great opportunities and new jobs for people in Glidewell because we've been able to create some education programs. So learn how to be a data scientist, learn machine learning, learn how to write code, learn how to do some engineering tasks. We've got electrical engineers, design engineers. Like we've got a whole little village here on Glidewell's campus. We're highly vertically integrated. So it's just opened up this whole new area for us. And I think most importantly, and I'll stop talking, but it's amazing what you'll find when you start talking to people and finding out that they have a hidden talent that you didn't know about, that they just kind of landed in a career because that what was available to them. But maybe they left their home country and they were an electrical engineer, or maybe they left their home country and had a background in cooking because we've got restaurants on site. So, you find these hidden talents that you didn't know about when you're in times of change, and that opens up new opportunities.
That's so interesting, especially, you as the CEO, that, the leadership, right, helps drive the culture of the company. And I find it fascinating that you are talking about finding people's unique ability, what they do best, what they're passionate about in such a large company. And so with your HR background, but you're really your EQ and your people skills, how do you really inculcate that thinking into the full leadership team? How do you take that kind of mindset? Because it seems to me to be one of the unique value propositions of Glidewell, of building that amazing culture.
Honestly, I think it comes from the top, and that's really Jim. That's his whole philosophy. He likes to say he graduated like third from the bottom of his high school class. And he's like, I wish I had been the bottom, because he's like, why did I try so hard? But, and his point is this, is like, you don't have to have this amazing, PhD education to be a really smart person. Really smart people are hidden in nooks and crannies of the organization. And it's just finding that, but it takes time and it takes curiosity. You have to actually, talk to people and give them chances and see what they're able to do and push them and until you can find where their limits are. But it really does start with Jim. And I think because it starts with him, he surrounds himself with people who think the same way and who have that same value. If you look at it, I'm actually probably one of the babies of the management team, because two of the people on the team have been with him 30 and 35 years at senior management. Wow. So we have a lot of longevity in the organization.
A pretty long average tenure of employee with Glidewell too. So
that's amazing. That's
impressive.
Amazing amount of time, right? That show, you got a lot of love in the room also. And that sounds like it comes from Jim.
Yeah.
Could you share a little bit about Jonathan's point about the culture coming from the top and permeating to the rest of the organization? It's probably a good time to talk about a topic that is near and dear to both of our hearts, which is how do you grow the next generation of leaders? What are the trainings, the opportunities, the skills? And how do you empower diversity of perspectives around the table, right? Insiders, outsiders of the industry, gender, age, backgrounds. How do you think about that? And what are the programs? I know you've implemented tons of successful leadership programs. Tell us about some of these programs and what, in your opinion, is making them so successful.
Yeah, I would love to. So, yeah, Maria, you and I had the joy of talking earlier in the year. So it was so nice to get to know you. But we talked a little bit about the education. So, yeah, because my background is in change and strategy, in my history, I did a lot of leadership development types of programs. And I'm one of those people, I'm an only child, and I always seek advice from an older sister, older brother, coach, mentor, something like that. And I've been so blessed in my career. I've had some of the most amazing leaders who have coached me and mentored me. And I've had some really bad ones, but I'm so grateful for them too, because they taught me all the things.
You learn from the bad ones. Yeah.
Yeah. You almost learn the most sometimes. But when I came to Glidewell, like I said, they were on a growth trajectory. They didn't want to lay people off. I was the first executive to come into the company from outside of Glidewell. Everybody internal, in the executive team, had sort of been homegrown. And I know that that's Jim's philosophy, is to hire people and then provide opportunities for growth for them. And so when I came here, I started what we call Glidewell University. And so it started off small. We just started little courses, 1 hour lunch and learns, on just how to have a difficult conversation with an employee. How do you, deal with conflict? How do you manage people more effectively? How do you get people motivated? Those types of things. And then I hired a really, really smart guy on my team. And one of the things that I like to say is, I prefer to hire people smarter than me, because I don't know everything and I can't know everything. And I love really smart people because they teach me things every day that I don't know. So I hired this amazing employee, Adam, and he helped me create the first course that I wanted to, which was a little mini MBA program, and we call it LEAD. And it's for mid-level management in our organization. And it's, I think it's a 12-month program now. And it's really all the things that you need to learn in order to be a great leader. So, they have to read books. So lots of Simon Sinek, outward mindset, change. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so these employees are almost going back to school again, right? It's we've got all this reading to do. We teach them about how to read a P&L, how to manage a P&L, those kinds of things, right? So we like to call it a mini MBA. And then the funny thing is, their managers started coming to me and saying, Stephenie, this program that you created, my employee is asking me all these questions and I don't know the answers. I'm kind of embarrassed. Can you help me? And so I was I love it when people ask for help. So then we created the executive leadership program and sort of mimicked it off of that. And then I said, I want a high potential program. This is for anybody who just, has drive and wants to do something with their life. Anyone can apply to it in the organization. Doesn't matter what level you are. You can be a housekeeper. You can be, a senior engineer. It doesn't matter. Anyone can apply, and it's a high potential course. And that's also 8 months. And again, you get some of these skills and you get introduced to concepts and business concepts in order to make you into whatever it is you want to be. And the amazing thing is, those types of programs cost money. And Jim has never once said, how much money are we spending on this? We have a big graduation ceremony for them. They do, at the end of their programs, they have to do a corporate project. So it's they have to find an improvement in the organization that they would like to propose a fix to. And then they get to present to the executives, here's what we saw and here's what we recommend. And we've had so many amazing changes come out of the organization and implemented just because of their graduation projects that they've done.
Amazing.
Reminds me of Google has this notion of 20% of your time you could work on a project that you want to work on. And effectively, it's the project that you might actually leave the company to go do. So they say, well, why don't you stay here and do it on our for a company. So that's pretty impressive. And are you seeing some of that? I know it's expensive investment in your team, but are you seeing some of the fruits or the return on investment in retention rates?
Oh, yeah.
How many of your new positions get filled from employees in-house who have grown through the path? Like, tell us a little bit of some of these benefits that you're seeing because you've invested in your employees over the years.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost too numerous to count, right? Because if you think about it, yeah, it's a lot of money, but it pays back, 100-fold. Because I look at a couple people and where they've come in the organization, right? There's this one guy, Jimmy. He'll hate it if he knows I'm talking about him, but he was a technician working in the plaster room in the implant department.
Hmm.
And he had come from Vietnam, and he had an engineering degree. Nobody knew he had an engineering degree. And he just happened to make this thing one day in the plaster room to help improve a process. And his boss walked by and he was like, he's showing him this new process that he made and this new piece of equipment that he built. And his manager said to him, oh, who made this for you? And he said, well, I made it. And he said, what do you mean you made it? How did you make that? And he said, oh, I'm actually an engineer from my home country. But when I came here, I couldn't get a job as an engineer. Nobody would hire me. And so I took a job at Glidewell as a plaster technician. And now he's doing amazing things. He's in our engineering department. He's building equipment. He's leading teams. There's thousands of those stories. And it's all because of this opportunities that's been created. So, it's not always about what Glidewell gets out of it. We get a ton out of it, but I also have a firm belief in giving back and paying it forward. And just the fact that, we did some sort of paying it forward for this one employee who's, dedicated. He's now been with us for, I think, 15 years. Most of our positions internally, the senior level positions, we try our best to fill from within where possible. I think it's also, though, still really important to get talent from the outside. We just hired somebody from the outside, Chuck Stapleton, and he's spent, years in 3D systems. He was at National Dentex in a very senior role. And for me, it's I also need talent. There's a fine balance between having homegrown and you kind of do things our way and versus having somebody come in from the outside and challenge you a little bit. Yeah, I know you've always done it that way, but, have you considered this other approach? And so, I try to maintain at least some kind of balance where we're promoting from within and then doing a little bit of bringing in some, new ideas from the outside.
Yeah, so good. So good. Maria, it is, how do you take a company of 4,000 employees and make it feel like it's a small entrepreneurial
family,
event?
like a family? Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. And I think you're really hitting on some of these so important elements with these companies that have built these amazing cultures because of the CEOs. Like what you have at Glidewell and what Howard Schultz was able to do with Starbucks, and the companies that are really growing, but growing over a number of years. Overnight success. Here you are in 17 years at the same company, which that in and of itself is quite a feat. So let's take it up a couple of more notches, because it's just so interesting. So leadership at every level, and the university that you've started when you first came on board in your HR role that then evolved to a CEO role. What's next? What's next for Glidewell? What's on the horizon that kind of plays into your thinking as you challenge people around you, challenge yourself, and looking at today's research and science and technology, and it's so exciting what's happening. So what's
and the
next?
balance between organic and inorganic growth, right, Jonathan? Growing for that many years.
Exactly.
So consistently, that's not easy. Yeah.
No, it's not easy. Trust me. You guys are trying to learn all my secrets. Everyone asks me, like, what's coming next for Glidewell? So,
We're friends. No one's listening. It's all family.
I
That's
hope
okay.
that's not true.
I hope that's not true.
Ouch.
It's a really good question, because if you look at the dental lab industry, since I've started, has actually shrunk, not grown. You've got a lot more going offshore, right? So many more crowns because of that digital aspect. Things again are sort of like equalizing, and you can ship things overseas easily and still get things back quickly. So you're seeing the shrink. And the one thing that I think that Jim was really smart about was, how do we pivot and not become just a dental lab and rely only on this? And so we really have taken that technology approach, right? So whether it's writing our own software, creating our own chairside mill. So people ask me all the time, why would a lab ever make a chairside mill? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're just taking work away from yourselves. But
disintermediating yourself, right?
Yeah. But it's actually, it's one of those things that's like, we might as well disrupt ourselves instead of letting somebody else disrupt us. So let's own our fate. And it's actually been the smartest thing that we've done. And, a lot of people ask, they think actually, some other German company makes our mill for us. No, we build it ridiculously right here in Newport Beach. Is probably not the cheapest place to build things, but, we build it right here. But what it does is it creates this ecosystem for us with our customers, so that they've got more interaction with Glidewell, because we are a big lab. And sometimes people think, oh, Glidewell's like the Walmart of dentistry. I like to think of us as what's the Nordstrom Rack version? Yeah, like the Nordstrom Rack. Like, it's kind of like,
We get that. I totally get that. Yes. Maybe it's Trader Joe's. It's not Whole Foods, it's Trader Joe's.
There you go.
Yes.
A really great product, but with a value price. But we've really tried to pivot into that. And so we have our own engineering department. We're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's the new technology that dentists don't even know that they want today, right? 3D printing's up and coming. Everyone wants a 3D printer, but the data shows that 80% of what's being printed are models. So how do you expand on that? And how do you make a product that people actually use? And again, to provide better products to your customers. How do we continue to improve the materials? So we have a material science group that's constantly working on newer materials. We have a couple new ones that we'll be coming out with later this year, continuing to push the boundaries of aesthetics in zirconia and in glass products. And then last year, we bought a new tech company out of the UK, and this will be our next foray into tech, it's called the Orb Sport Smart Appliance. It's a tongue twister, but it's this really interesting new technology. It's a custom mouth guard for people who are in contact and combat sports, and that'll launch on July 1st. But it's got technology built into the layers. So it'll measure those metrics for those athletes. It'll tell you your heart rate, your steps, your accelerations. It will also give you your G-force impacts to your head, right and left. It doesn't tell you if you have a concussion, but it tells you how often are you being hit, on what side of your head are you being hit. Then if you start to feel some, medical, dizziness, and you can have that data and maybe take it to your doctor and say, hey, I'm not feeling great. Here's some of my data. But for an athlete who's really interested in improving their performance when they're at game day, right? Game day, you can't wear other types of things like rings and watches and stuff. You can wear those during practice, but you can't wear it on game day. And game day is really where you exert yourself, 110%. And this will give you that data, that piece of data that you've been missing. Like, how am I performing when I'm at my highest?
Well,
so I think technology is just going to continue to grow, and there's, so many new ideas that are going to be coming out, and you have to that is the future. So it's like, get on the bus or get out of the way.
Right. Exactly.
Love that.
Yeah. On that cutting edge.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible, especially with all the head injuries in football, and all the parents are preventing their kids from playing football, and all of these kind of issues that to have some baseline data for all of these sports. I was a lacrosse player, and I have two sons that followed dad, and one who had 3 concussions, and it's just and the equipment has to constantly be improved. But this company that you now have acquired sounds like exactly what's necessary in sports from a standpoint of head injury to be able to kind of get that data. But that's extremely innovative. And when you look at Glidewell, it started at people waxing at a bench for crowds, like how we do, and we make jewelry, we make gold from years ago to where they are today. Really, really shows a tremendous evolution.
I love this example because of all the reasons you called out, Jonathan, but also because we talk a lot about convergence and putting oral health in the intersection with other health-related industries. Health performance, optimizing your wellness, your performance as a professional athlete is one of those industries where the oral cavity is just a gateway as an indicator for the rest of the body, how the rest of the body is doing. And I love that example with the product you're bringing together. And it just reminds me, I was sitting down with the CEO of Whoop, $3.5 billion company, the most valuable wearable company out there. And Will Ahmed was effectively how they went to market is 2 out of their first 100 users was Michael Phelps and one of the big basketball player stars.
Mm-hmm.
And so that wearable as a consumer wearable got started with athletes and professional hardcore workout people trying to optimize their own health and performance. And so to think about the evolution of a wearable for your mouth, like the guard that you're describing, and how it connects to the data and married it up with all the data that you already have, it starts to become extremely interesting.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about, Stephenie, and I know we need to wrap up soon, but Whoop is a subscription-based model. Unlike a wearable, we could go and purchase the device. One of their biggest innovations is that says, we're not going to sell you a $500 device, we'll sell you a monthly subscription. That's a disruptive business model. Are you thinking about the business model of dental labs changing and evolving over the years as well? Because that's really even harder to do.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a fascinating question because in my 17 years, dental labs have changed, right? So they're going to only continue to change it. And I do worry, like, I don't know what happens to dental labs in the future, especially with, technology being the great equalizer.
Okay.
You don't necessarily have to go to your lab that's down the street from you. You can, send your crown digitally to Vietnam or to China and get it back in 2 weeks. And what does that do to businesses here in the US? And how does that impact the lab business? When I look at our data, last year we crossed over the 50% mark, which was last July. 50% of our cases started coming in digitally versus physical impression.
Oh.
Now today it's 60% come in digitally. If you look at single unit posterior crowns, about 75% of those are coming in from intraoral scanners instead of physical impression. And so that changes the whole industry, right? You think about, okay, well, how many more people are going to be buying impression trays? How many more people are going to be buying impression material? How many, so you sort of close one, you close one business to open up another business, and the tech is just getting better and better and better. And, scanning of implants is getting better. Scanning of denture or, fully edentulous patients will continue to get better. It's still like a little wonky process, but I think that labs are going to have to pivot if they want to stay in business. You're going to have to find partnerships or some sort of unique offering that nobody else has to offer. Maybe you do become the sort of, lab that only works with the doctors down the street and does custom shading still because that's not offered as much, or some of those types of things, right? But everyone's going to have to find, like, what is it that I'm really good at? And if the things that I'm really good at are like the impression materials that are like going off of a cliff. Like, hey, I need to find a new skill that I can market my lab and market myself as being the strength in that area. So I get nervous every day, actually. Like, what's going to happen to Glidewell in 10 years? Like, where are we going to be? Like, it's a constant, conversation with my leaders about what's next. Where do we need to be leading the industry? We can't just do Me Too products. We have to do something really innovative or create partnerships, with companies like an Overjet or a Medit or Carestream. Like, how do you partner with these companies to, help dentists build technology into their practice to then, ideally, hopefully create a back end for you as well. And then to be seen also as a trusted partner for the customer or the dentist at the end of the day.
Yeah. But it's you set up so nicely because you're constantly reinventing and you're constantly moving and growing. So the profession knows Glidewell for what they are today. And so as the future is changing, and, we know the adoption of how long things really do take in medicine and dentistry for the docs to really adopt these new technologies. Intraoral scanners, for example, came out about 30 years ago, but has constantly improved. And today they're truly amazing, evidenced by how quick the adoption is starting to happen now and how the digital workflow is taking over our delivery of care. But yeah, it's, the fundamentals are there. You got a campus of 4,000 people and, a mindset and a culture that is something to be envied by every company and to try to emulate that culture built. Don't you think, Maria?
100%. Amazing. And I know our listeners will still stay tuned for the July 1st launch. Good luck with the launch. Maybe in closing, what are some of the opportunities that you see for entrepreneurs trying to start companies? And what is the best way for them to get in touch with Glidewell if they wanted to explore one of the partnerships that you were describing earlier today?
Yeah. So I think the world's the limit, or the sky's the limit. There's technology coming out every day and you're like, where? I would never have thought of that. Best way for people is to go through me, and the best way is to find me on LinkedIn at Stephenie Goddard. So I track it pretty closely. I log on at least a couple times a week to check messages. So that's usually the best way. If somebody's got an innovative product or they're looking for somebody to partner and bring it to market, it typically funnels through me, and that's the best way to do it.
That's great. Well, we're so grateful that we got to spend time with you. Please come back after you have completed your jump off the mountains to tell us about that experience. We like repeat guests. You obviously have so many things going on at Glidewell and outside of Glidewell. So great to have you on the podcast, and we can't wait to see you again. And congrats for all the amazing work you've been able to accomplish.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me. This was fun. Nice way to start the morning.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
see you next time. Bye.